My friend and colleague Rachel Maddow periodically reminds us that we ought to watch what they do, not what they say. In this instance, though, what they're saying is at least worth reporting, telling you about, because Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller is already calling what's happening in Los Angeles a, quote, insurrection. J.D. Vance tweeted about insurrectionists, and Donald Trump himself, after telling a journalist yesterday that what is happening in Los Angeles is not an insurrection, proceeded to post, quote, paid insurrectionists. Then this afternoon, he posted again about insurrectionists. It is just a word, but it is an important one, not just because invoking the Insurrection Act would be an unprecedented escalation, but also because anyone older than 4 years old remembers an actual insurrection and the way Trump spent his first day in office the second time pardoning all the rioters involved in January 6th. Joining our conversation is former Republican Congressman, former advisor to the January 6th Select Committee, Denver Riggleman. Denver, I know you're just back from Ukraine, and I promise we'll get to that in a second. But your thoughts on this moment unfolding?
You know, you just said it when they said insurrectionists. What they are setting up is the Insurrection Act. You know, when right before the election, we were wargaming a lot of this with a lot of groups. And the sort of let's protect democracy movement. I remember I was doing one with Bill Kristol, and we were talking about the Insurrection Act and how we thought there would be some type of motivation or some type of escalation, maybe even artificial escalation to get to that point. And what you're seeing, Nicole, is the use of the word insurrection to get to what they hope is the Insurrection Act, because that's something that it seemed that President Trump has been wanting to do since he took office the first time in 2016. Also, when you look at insurrection, they're trying to take the language of what happened on January 6th. I saw an insurrection. And there are gradations, right? There's common sense, Nicole, right? If you're stealing something and you steal a Snickers bar or you steal a vehicle, those are two very different things. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to apply the escalation of violence, or the deliberate, I would say, the deliberate escalation, right, of activity with the National Guard to an insurrection when you have people that are actually going against the escalation of that violence from the government, rather than the proactive measures of the January 6th insurrectionists who planned it, whether they're Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, the other white nationalist groups, rally planners, all the people that were involved that we know of, from text messages all the way to phone records. So I think that's what you're seeing, Nicole, is exactly that, which was brilliant. Right, is they're trying to take the language of January 6th, but they're also trying to frame the need for the Insurrection Act with the escalation of violence that they hope happens based on the National Guard being in that area.
I don't say this a lot, so when I get to say it, I'm going to say it out loud and twice. I agree with Kash Patel. I agree with Kash Patel. He tweeted this: hit a cop, you're going to jail. Doesn't matter where you came from, how you got there, what movement speaks to you. If the local police force won't back our men and women on the thin blue line, the FBI will. It would be wonderful if Kash Patel said that to Harry Dunn's face, or Michael Fanone's face, or any of the other dozens of officers who defended the United States Capitol on January 6th. Do you think they think their own base is stupid? Do you think they think we don't know what happened on January? I mean, why? How do they say those things without caring about the officers that were hit by Trump supporters on January 6th?
It's the thing that really bothers me. Harry was with me in Ukraine, Nicole. I don't know if you knew that or not. And I don't know if anybody's been around Harry Dunn, but I don't think Kash Patel is going to tell Harry Dunn to his face that, based on what happened, right? Or Fanone, for that, Michael, for that matter. The fact is, he's just full of crap. Right? This is them trying to set up another narrative outside of what really happened on January 6th, but it's lying. You know, it's just sort of this pathological need for machismo that comes out of a lot of these individuals, right, who I don't think could make the JV baseball team. That's really what we have here. And what you're seeing with this type of chest thumping, again, is gearing up to what you're seeing in L.A. and what they hope to happen, which is them actually rolling in and some of the campaign promises that President Trump wanted to actually keep, but he's trying to make them happen based on the National Guard being deployed. So, yeah, Kash Patel's full of crap. I mean, he shouldn't be there anyway. But what you have is somebody who really has no sense of what he's saying, or he absolutely does, and it's the cynicism of what they did to the police officers on the Capitol steps on January 6th. And now he's saying this ridiculousness, like somehow there's some parallel where they've completely forgotten or trying to whitewash this. So you're right, Nicole, they think we're stupid. But, you know, there's a whole huge portion of the population who just really doesn't care what's happening in LA. They just don't care. They are living their lives. They voted for Trump, over 77 million people. And I think what they're saying to them is something that they say, I voted for this. And that's what I'm seeing on social media, is this sort of rah-rah, I voted for this, while showing pictures of people running from law enforcement. And I got to tell you, that should bother every American if that's where we're going as a country.
What do we do about that?
You know, I was listening to the prior segment. I know John was talking about the midterms and listening to Eddie, but what we have to do about that, I told people that we're almost to the point of intellectual house-to-house fighting, where you have to be confrontational with people.